Welcome to a Football Show Thursday edition brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. That is Nick Suss of the Tennessean. I am Braden Gall. Nick, good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, everybody. I'm here. I'm happy. We're here. Let's do this.
Into the comments already, Bustin. I appreciate that. Lots of stuff to get to today on the show. Lots of small things from rookie camp, rookie practice, rookie walkthrough, rookie stretching. I don't know. Gus Bradley had some interesting things to say about linebackers. We'll talk about that. So we'll get your thoughts, Nick, at the start here about what you saw over the weekend. And then I want to spend the vast majority of time on the show today trying to figure out what exactly this offense is going to look like. We'll touch on the defense a little bit too, but snap counts on defense are much harder to kind of understand and pinpoint, and it's way more fluid than I think on offense when we look at the offense and we go, how many times are they going to run the ball? How many times are they going to throw the ball, and who gets the ball on all of those plays, and what does the offense look like with all these new free agents and new draft picks, second-year players, all kinds of intrigue on the offense. So we're going to dive into that as well. So we'll do all of that. Sinkers Beverages is our great and amazing, wonderful local partner. They are a 5-time award-winning liquor store of the year in East Nashville, and you can have that booze delivered directly to your house this weekend. So, and it doesn't have to be booze, right? They've got tons of great things at that store that don't involve alcohol. They got THC beverages. They have all kinds of small gifts if you need a small gift for any reason. As I was saying on the Pred show yesterday, there's a bag of olive juice that you can buy if you need a bag of olive juice. Like, I use that to mix a cocktail, and yes, that does involve alcohol, but in theory, I suppose you could just, make sure you have an extra bag of olive juice around the house whenever you need it.
Bag?
Yeah, it literally comes in a bag. I'm not even kidding.
That's not the delivery method I would have expected.
Well, there's a brand that they carry that has like all kinds of things, like margarita mix and cherry juice for bourbon and for old fashions, but it all comes in like a weird pouch with like a nozzle on top. It's very strange. But the olive ratio, as I've said on previous shows, the olive ratio is off. The amount of juice and olive in a jar never matches what you need. And so now you can go buy a giant bag of olive juice, refill your jar, and you got another jar of olives right there. So Sinkers Beverages, solving problems you didn't know the world had, Nick.
While we are on the sponsor segment, I'll start this off with a place of understanding, a place of this is not a call out. It's going to sound like a call out. It's not a call out. It's an understanding. A loyal listener of this show, who shall remain nameless, invited me to a trivia night on Tuesday at a local establishment that has been mentioned several times on this show, and that didn't show up. You okay, bud? Just let me know you're okay.
Whoa.
I got stood up, you guys. This does prove, though, if any of you reach out and you're like, hey, you want to come to a trivia night, I will show up. But yeah.
You're not going to blow up this guy's spot?
Not going to blow up this guy's spot.
This is a listener, not a friend.
This is a listener. Who I would deem a friend.
Okay, how did this listener reach out to you?
Let's just say it happened at the in-person event.
Okay. I think I know exactly who you're talking
about. And truly just checking in. This is a welfare check. You doing good? You doing good, buddy? I'm not mad. I'm truly not mad. I ate a burger and I left.
I think you're very mad.
I don't care about Harry Potter trivia. I was just there to be a friend.
Ooh, Harry. Wow. He's catching. I think he upset it. Did you upset your wife with that one? That last one about Harry Potter?
She doesn't know what you're saying, so she thinks that people are being like. No. She thinks that I'm like naming the person or whatever. No, I'm truly saying I left because I don't have a Harry Potter trivia mind. But I would have had a lot of fun.
So we found the one thing. We found the one thing that you don't have a trivia mind for. You can tell us exactly how many times Xavier Estrepo has been posted on Twitter, but you don't know anything about Harry Potter, huh?
I've read the books and I've seen the movies.
Really?
But those were like 20 years ago, man. Like, when did the last book come out? Like 2008?
Is this
It's been
weird?
A long time.
I have like 4 or 5 of the. I don't know how many books there are. I have 4 or 5 of them in the house. Like, I don't even know how we got them. I think maybe my wife brought them into the marriage. I've read 0 of the books. I think I've seen every movie, but I've never read a book. I am Tolkien all the way. Give me Tolkien or give me nothing in that.
I've tried to read Lord of the Rings like 4 times, and I can't get past like the first 100 and 150 pages. It is just so dense.
It's very dense to start, for sure. But if you start with I think you start with The Hobbit. Like, I started with
I've read The Hobbit, yeah.
I started with The Hobbit when I was younger, and I fell in love with Lord of the Rings as a thing. And my kids have seen all 3 movies. Like by the time they were 5 years old, they had seen all 3 movies like 3 times. So they like I'm big on Lord of the Rings over Harry Potter, but Harry Potter's great too. I think whatever. If
And the person knows I'm talking about them.
I can't believe this gentleman.
Again, I am not mad. This is truly me being a jokester. I don't care. It is truly very funny to me. You probably had something else going on.
90% of jokes. There's like all kinds of truth and layered in there, right? Or whatever the thing is.
Look, if I was mad, I would have been mad. But no, I'm just like, oh, I had a burger. It was pretty good.
Direct quote, no context. Quote, I have never read a book. Braden Gall. It might seem like that sometimes. So here we go, says Team Ramrod. I have seen the Lord of the Rings movies more times than a person should. That sounds right. I agree with you. I also have done that probably as well.
Good. Those were my sick day movies when I was in high school.
This might be the new title of the episode, talking about fantasy stats and target distribution. The Battle of Helm's Deep theme is my favorite hype up music. It's a pretty good scene, honestly. Helm's Deep is a pretty good scene. It's a pretty good scene. Morning, fellas, says Daniel. Good to see you. We got my bad, sus. I was refilling my olive juice at Sinkers, says Joey. Look, guys, I'm just using the olive juice anecdote to illustrate a point about how much stuff Sinkers Beverages has to offer you, the consumer.
And I am using this story to articulate, if you invite me to something, I will probably show up.
You did show up to the same place, I think, with my parents and my children and my wife, and then you and I just ate wings.
Different place, but yes.
Okay.
If you invite me to a place, I will show up to it. That is my promise to you, dear listeners.
I like it.
If there is trivia involved, I will probably show up.
It was not me, says Bustin. I have been taking care of child.
Singular, nondescript child.
All right. Let's get it. First of all, what were your takeaways broadly from 2 days of whatever the hell that was on Friday and Saturday last week? You can go on the field, or we can talk about what the players had to say or what the coaches had to say. What'd you take away from it?
I don't want to get to the I just like football and I'm glad I was around it portion this early in the show. It was nice to be on the football field. It was nice to see football. It was nice to see people moving around. I am more excited.
Falling into holes,
I am more excited for the veterans portion of this because I was kind of operating under the now correct assumption that none of these guys were going to make the team, that it was a big long tryout for very little purpose. And I think it's telling. I can't remember who said this, or I'm trying to remember if this was on the record or off the record, so I'm going to talk around it. But I think that the Titans are very cognizant of how the NFL draft is different now as players are staying in college longer. And I think that as a product of that, they are more aware that signing veterans that still have practice squad eligibility is going to be a better way to fill out 70 through 90 than by leading with a bunch of undrafted guys. Because guys who would have been undrafted in the past are going in the 5th, 6th round now. Like everything is getting booted up.
Yep.
So if you have players with 2 to 4 years of experience that still can get paid practice squad minimum or still won't expect massive salaries, I would probably expect it to be more common across the entire league, not just with the Titans, to see rosters filled out with those guys more than bringing in 20 undrafted guys plus a draft class and trying to fill things out that way. I just don't know if there's enough talent to justify doing that.
I tend to agree with all of that. I do think these are like sort of slow tectonic shifts, like that kind of are going to happen over time. But and honestly, we don't know what the future of college football holds. And so we don't know in 10 years, well, all of a sudden everybody's leaving early because college football playing college football sucks again for players. I don't know. Like we just don't know what it's going to be. I think for now, I think I think I've said this on the show with you and with Paul, like, and chatting with some folks around, we'll call it talent evaluation on all kind of levels. The thought is the top 70 to 100 picks should be more accurate because the players are going to be more experienced. They're going to be older and you're going to have more tape and they're going to have more development with fundamentals. They should be more prepared for the NFL and your evaluations of them should be cleaner, better, smarter, more accurate. But then it falls off precipitously in in the 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds, which is, of course, where all of the Titans draft picks really were this year. They're top 60 or in the last 3 rounds. So I think that's all accurate stuff. Daniel says, how great did the uniforms look on the field? I do think you can see the photos in what the Titans have posted and what we've posted, and I do think it was jarring at first, and I'm going to speak from just seeing the logo around town everywhere, because they've clearly planted these signs at like every business in every neighborhood all over the city. It was jarring at first to kind of see it and be like, oh, there it is. Okay, oh, there it is. The uniforms don't look that different. They are better, in my opinion, because they have a little bit more red trim, and I like the helmets and the logo better. But like, they really don't look that different than the light blue uniforms with the white pants that they've practiced in before, because they were prepared for this, like slowly but surely preparing for this.
I will just one anecdote. I will say there was a point where the players were stretching on a part of the field that was pretty far away from where media were standing. And the white unis with the white helmets from a distance where you couldn't see the lighter blue trim and the numbers looked an awful lot to me like Cowboys uniforms. And that was an interesting thing that I didn't expect, that if you are viewing...
Not Colts.
No, it was strange. And I think it had more to do with the lighter helmet and all that stuff. But yeah, from afar, I was like, that looks a little bit like Dallas. And the numbers obviously made it look like Titans Oilers. Sure. But that was my only like real uniform observation, was that
I thought they looked good.
From afar, they look like uniforms that we associate with being very classic, sleek, whatever.
That's
to you guys.
That's interesting, because the Colts road uniform, it actually is a white helmet with blue. Now it's dark blue, of course, the numbers and the logo and everything, whereas the Cowboys helmet is silver. But
yeah.
I like the. I just think they look good, but that's because I thought they looked good when they brought them out. I thought they looked good. I like the old Houston uniforms. I am not a diehard Titans fan who grew up with that logo as a child, so like I'm not the right one to ask about that, and I'm fine with admitting that. I think these are a better brand for the team, but we've already discussed the uniforms and the logos for months and months and months. Who was sitting down on the job? That's what I want to know. I didn't know PK got after somebody for sitting down. I want to know.
I don't know. I'm the wrong person to ask about interbeat drama and dynamics.
I don't think it's drama. I think it's just PK being PK.
I am not going to.
You don't sit down. You don't sit down on the grass on a sideline of a football field. You don't.
I'm also the guy that wears jeans and long pants every day in like 100-degree training camp weather. So yes. I might be the wrong person to ask about like taking breaks during practice.
Let me ask you: you would never sit down on the field next to on the sideline. Have you ever sat down on the benches that are up there against the facility? Because I've done that between sessions. Like I was
going to say like during a special teams period, I'll take a break.
Yeah.
But other than that, not really.
And that's not where you would stand and observe. You're kind of like off the field, as it were, as a reporter. Here's the question: I've done this one before. I've taken the knee on the sideline, and now I'll go out to the side. Like if action's at midfield, I'll go down to like the 10-yard line, and I'll take a knee, and then I can write on my little pad. And how do you feel about the knee taking on the sideline as a reporter?
Expressly forbidden.
Okay.
It's in the rules that you're not supposed to sit or kneel. I don't know. I don't care. I don't care. I probably
according to the Titans rules.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't care. If somebody wants to kneel, if somebody wants to sit, do what you got to do. I'm probably not going to, but that's because I can't sit still. Doing this show for an hour is the only time all week that I don't pace while I'm working. It truly makes my editors and coworkers furious, because I walk laps around the Tennessean's office all day.
I bought a standing desk because of that exact thing. I need to be moving around like in the afternoon. This is when I sit in the mornings. I stand in the afternoons. All right. What about Gus Bradley and linebackers? Anything else on the field? Yeah, that was all very, very important observations by both of us. What about is there anything that you learned from talking to people that you think is going to set us up kind of for a conversation around usage and how we're going to see the offense deploy players, and what about like anything at all from talking to the folks that I know you wrote about linebacker usage and what Bradley wants to do with Anthony Hill. So what did we learn there?
I'm trying to remember. I don't think I wrote that story. Somebody wrote that story, and I've read it. But yeah, I
Oh, that was Alex. That's right.
that was an Alex story. I didn't want to blow you up there. But yeah, I think that it makes sense that the Titans are drafting traits, that they're drafting go attack Sala mentality type players, and they'll plug the best communicator where they need to. Like it's a solid approach, and far be it for me to criticize a strategy that clearly works. The 49ers defenses have been good under Sala. The Jets defenses were good under Sala. These guys know how to make productive defenses. So if this is what works, cool. Do what works. I'm not going to criticize that. You guys have all heard my long spiels about just don't invest top 100 capital in the position, especially because you've been able to make it work with non-top 100 capital time and time again. They invested top 100 capital in it. I'm not going to rant about it again.
It's late. It's late top 100 capital. It's not early.
I don't think 60 is late. 60 is middle.
But the drop off in value from top 15 to top 30 to top 50, it goes down pretty fast.
I understand, but
okay.
Nevertheless, they invested it. I think Anthony Hill, when he's communicating with us, when he is talking to the media, incredibly communicative, incredibly energetic. I would say might challenge Bones Fossil for the most energetic person that comes to the podium. He's got a lot to say, and he seems very happy to be saying it. So we'll see if the Titans grade communication skills as loudness and effusiveness, or if they grade it as intelligence and football know-how.
Cam Ward.
I don't.
His communication style is the opposite, in my opinion. It's quiet confidence, right?
Sure, but what I'm talking about is like the Hill versus Barton of it all. The thing they like about Cody Barton is the experience, is the knowledge, is the been there, done that. It's like I was reading, I think it was The Ringer. Somebody was writing about LeBron James at year 23 and why he's so successful at this stage in his career when he can't out athlete people like he did in the past. And they were talking about the buildup of reps and how every athlete, the longer you play, the more you get to recognize all of the stuff that happens on the field around you. And Cody Barton is the guy in this room who has seen the most football and will probably be able to communicate football that way. We'll be able to say, this is what I'm seeing, rather than the communication just being, oh, I repeat what was said to me in my earpiece. Yes, anyone can do that. But if the expectation in this defense is that the linebacker has to do more, they have to be the eyes of the play caller on the field and recognize what you're looking for. I wouldn't be shocked if the guy who has 8 years or whatever it is of built up experience in the NFL is still given the role of eyes and ears of the coach on the field, even if Hill is somebody who very likely can be that guy by the end of the season.
Sure. Question from Daniel Caribbean here, and I want to ask you this. I'm hesitant to ask you this. Are you okay with our first Xavier Restrepo question happening after rookie camp?
Sure.
All right. How did Restrepo look in comparison to Montgomery, Tyron Montgomery, the UDFA, and the other rookie wide receivers? He should have a huge advantage with a year in the NFL already, but maybe not. And why are the Titans putting him out on Twitter more than all of the best players on the team, Nick?
Well, the first question, he did look better. Yes. I was watching on Friday, the first day of camp. He caught 2 or 3 would-be touchdowns in 7-on-7. He was going against a bunch of guys who aren't NFL caliber defensive backs, but he looked good. He looked
famously, when Restrepo plays against non-NFL players, very productive.
Yeah, he looked good. I don't want to sit here and quibble about the value of your wide receiver 6. Like in a best case scenario, the Restrepo versus Bryce Oliver versus KJ Osborne versus Tyrant Montgomery argument is about wide receiver 6. You have Carnell Tate, you have Wan'Dale Robinson, you have Calvin Ridley, you have Jim DK, you have Alec Iomanner. DK and Iomanner probably aren't going to play nearly as much as they played last year.
We'll get to that.
So now you are looking at the tier of Restrepo, Kinsey, Hal Presley, Lance McCutcheon, KJ Osborne, Tyron Montgomery, and Hank Beatty. Is that the guy from Illinois that they signed? I believe that is the rest of the receiver room. If I did that off the top of my head, I'm impressed with myself.
Well done.
One of those guys, maybe two of those guys, make the active roster. You're probably looking at 2 or 3 more on the practice squad. None of them are going to get significant receiver reps unless 2 people get hurt.
Yep.
And I understand wanting to talk about wide receiver because it's a fun position to talk about, but there is no other position on the field that we talk about, oh, what happens if 2 people get hurt? Oh,
Corner, maybe.
What happens if 2 people get hurt at corner? Well, they don't have any players. That's an easy conversation.
Right now, they don't. Yeah,
they don't have anybody. What happens if 2 people get hurt at at any other position? We are not prepping ourselves for that. So yes, Restrepo looked pretty good.
I'm going to do 4 months of content in like 12 seconds. Bryce Oliver 6, Xavier Restrepo 7, Tyron Montgomery 8, and that's it.
Okay. As for the thing I put out yesterday on Twitter for people that don't know what Braden is referring to, why was Restrepo more featured in Titans social media posts this offseason? Because he's there.
You're saying give me the timeline window that you did the research on this.
From when players reported. So right before the draft, early April or mid-April until yesterday. I looked at every photo and I looked at every video. And the way I tallied it was if you were the focal point of a photograph or a video, and there could be up to 3 or 4 focal points in a shot. If you were just in the background lounging around, I didn't count it. But if the camera lens focus was on you, either in photo or video, I tallied it. And they put out a 9-minute video of a bunch of workouts. And however many times you were the focal point, that was an extra tally. So it's not like, oh, you were in this video one time.
Yeah.
And the numbers get skewed. And I know that some people were questioning the numbers. I'll tell you they were pretty accurate because that video, like Wan'Dale Robinson's in that video 7 or 8 times. Like Cedric Gray is in that video probably 5 times. There are some people whose numbers are inflated because they were in that 9-minute video a bunch of times. Restrepo was in that video a bunch of times. People who weren't in that video a bunch of times are the veterans who don't necessarily need to be at every day of voluntary workout. So it's, oh, Jeffrey Simmons wasn't there? Yeah, we know. We know Jeffrey Simmons wasn't there. He's told us several times that he's not going to be a fixture at off-season training activities. I didn't see very much of John Franklin-Myers. I didn't see very much of Peter Skoronski. These are guys that I'm not concerned about not being at practice because I trust that they're good football players, whether or not they are lifting at the Titans facility. Restrepo is at the Titans facility. He's lifting. He's working out. He's trying to make the team. So, yeah, he was going to be featured more because he's there. Now, should he have been featured more than some of the other guys who are there? That's a totally different discussion. But receivers were totally skewed. Wan'Dale Robinson and Calvin Ridley and Chim Dike and Alec Iomanner, I believe, were all in the top 7 of most frequently featured. People like wide receivers.
Wait, what? Wait a second. People know the players who touch the football? What? People know who the 3rd string running back is for the Commanders? What?
And also,
yes, of course they all do. They're offensive skill position players. Of course they're more featured.
And also Daniel, who I don't know if you prefer Caribbean or Caribbean, but I'll go with Daniel Caribbean here. Why wasn't Slater included? I was only featuring practice photos and videos. So any use of like pictures from the locker room or pictures from the fan events or stadium events or stuff like that, I did not include. So you're right. The Titans have featured Slater talking about Star Wars, but they did
seems
not.
Like it's up your alley, big guy. Offensive lineman who's a nerd. That's your guy.
I'm also not a big Star Wars guy. I'm mostly indifferent to Star Wars.
All right, let's move on to offense here.
I'm just mostly indifferent. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just not my thing.
Okay, all right. I'm not going to be offended. Okay. Sinkers Beverages, of course, please support good local businesses. Tennessean.com for Knicks journalism, of course. All the other great shows across the 440 Sports Network. Please go check them out. Preds, Nashville SC, et cetera, et cetera. SEC Football Live, Lamestream Sports. We even have some news coverage for you if you want. Pod Bless Nashville, the Ant B Radio Hour, both of which I host as well, about things that are happening in Nashville. So lots of stuff going on the network. Sinkers Beverages also has an award-winning craft beer retail fridge, and that fridge is full of things like East Nashville Beer Works, Yazoo Brewing Company, and Tennessee Brew Works as well. Those are three amazing, spectacular local breweries that if you can go have a beer there or pick up their beer at Sinkers, you're doing pretty well for yourself this weekend. So go check those out. We do appreciate it. Yes, John, thank you. I did feel immediately offended as well. Don't. I don't need any comment.
I'm not gonna expand. I'm just like, I'm happy that you guys like it. It's really good. It's just not for me.
Fair. Okay. So here's the thing. I'm gonna set the benchmarks here on last year's offense, and then we're gonna look at Brian Daboll's offense, and then we're gonna look at what they together could look like this year. As you already mentioned, Io Manor and DK being used a lot less in this offense. So Cam Ward threw 540 passes last year. This offense as a team was 12th in the NFL in passing attempts. So actually a top 12 team in terms of attempted passes, 570 passes. They only ran the ball 378 times, which is 30th in the NFL, one of the least used rushing attacks in the league last year. That's the benchmark for the Titans last year under any number of play callers and coordinators and head coaches.
Mind if I jump in for one sentence?
Yeah, go for it.
Bad teams throw the ball a lot more than they run the ball.
Sure.
So those numbers can be explained away less by scheme and more by 3 and 14. Go on.
Yeah, of course. Giants, over the course of the 4 years, now I did not break down the 10 games that Daboll coached last year versus the 7 that he did not. I did not do that. I just didn't want to. And so, but I did look at the 4-year averages of the Giants over the course of 4 years, where the Giants averaged 538 passes per season, 477 rushing. So they averaged almost 100 more rushing attempts per season than the Titans put in last year. And the Giants weren't that much better in most of those seasons.
They did have Saquon Barkley for 2 of them, I believe.
They did have Barkley, and they were. Now, what's ironic is where they finished the highest, they finished second last year in rushing attempts. No Barkley, and Daboll gone for 8 of those games. What's weird about this Giants offense looking under Daboll is how different it is from year to year in terms of the focus. If you look at year 1 when they were the best, the Giants were the best. They were 25th in the NFL in passing attempts, 8th in the NFL in rushing attempts, identical. 520 passing, 520 rushing, crazy numbers there. The passing numbers never really get all that crazy. They're 26th in the NFL, 9th in the NFL, and 20th in the NFL. Rushing, they had 2 seasons where they gave the ball to Barkley. That was Brian Daboll's first season. And then last year where they finished second in the NFL. In between, 455 attempts, 424. That's 16th and 25th in the NFL. It's a lot of numbers I'm throwing at you. But basically, this team, the Giants, with a similar record over the last few years, have run the ball significantly more and thrown the ball a little bit less than the Titans did last year. So I just want to – that's sort of the baseline of where we're going. Anything about those numbers, questions or comments?
One clarification. Off the top of your head, if you don't know, fun guessing game, how many carries do you think Jackson Dart had last year?
Like 100?
He carried 86 times last year. He was, if not I think he was like 3rd or 4th among quarterbacks in rushing attempts, certainly very high in rushing attempts per game since he didn't play the full season.
Do you know what Cam Ward did last year?
Not off the top of my head, but I would
way more than I expected.
I would have guessed like 30.
39, yeah.
Yeah. So Jackson Dart ran a lot more than we would expect Cam Ward to. I believe Jackson Dart ran more last year than Tyjae Spears did.
Yes, Tyjae Spears had 72 carries last year.
And the Titans last year were 5th least in the NFL when it came to RB3 carries. Julius Chestnut only carried 12 times last year.
Yep.
I want to say the 49ers were the fewest, with Kyle Juszczyk being their RB3 with 2 carries. But for the most part, the Titans rushing game numbers are down because Tony Pollard was the only player who got a significant chunk of carries. And we can factor in Nick Singleton, and I did a little bit of research on this week that I find pretty interesting. But last year, the median RB2, RB3, the median backup running back, had 51 carries in the NFL. I believe the median RB2 had about 111. The median RB3 had somewhere in the 30s or 40s. But if we're talking backup running back, rostered running back, your median RB2, RB3 should carry 50 to 51 times.
Well, let's I like separating those out though between 2 and 3, especially considering that now they have a clear 1, 2, and 3, and there's a more interesting 3, even though he might be used more in the passing game. But if you do like, and let's start with the running game since we're kind of there here, and I was going to go targets and passing attack because I find it to be so interesting. But let's go into the rushing game because it's a little bit simpler to follow and understand, especially via podcast. 378, they're not going to be that low. I don't imagine. Daboll's average was 477 in 4 years. If you just conservatively say they're going to get to 400, that is reducing Tony Pollard to some degree. He had 242 carries last year. That's a pretty low number for an RB1, I would imagine. I don't know if you've got those numbers on average for RB1s across the league. Do you think he goes down? Do you think he stays at 240? I think 200 or 220 is probably a really good estimate for Tony Pollard. Where are you at on? Like I think that the rushing total goes up. I just don't know how much. So I want to get to that as our solution to this question.
Yeah. I'm of two minds here because I agree that when I'm studying what wasn't good enough with the Titans' run game last year, the conclusion I come to has a lot more to do with Tyjae Spears and Julius Chestnut and Kalel Mullings than it does with Tony Pollard. I was very surprised to learn that last season, Tony Pollard ranked 9th in the NFL in carries of 10 or more yards. If you look at his breakaway run rate, which I was defining as 10 plus yard carries divided by total number of carries, he was at 11.2% of his carries went for 10 or more yards. Jonathan Taylor was at 11.1. Derrick Henry was at 11.7. Like Tony Pollard was very much in a range comparable to some of the better down by down running backs. I'm using those two as my example, not like Devin Achane, because Tony Pollard's not Devin Achane.
Right.
So from a productivity perspective, at the workload Tony Pollard had last year, I don't think Tony Pollard was a problem.
I don't think anyone says that.
No.
Like I don't think fans or media have said that. I
think there was a little bit of talking down Tony Pollard simply to talk up Jeremiah Love in the pre-draft process, and I think that was natural. But the reason I say I'm of two minds here is because we know historically that Tony Pollard's best seasons have come when he can share the workload, when he doesn't have to be an every down back. If you look at the success he had in Dallas with Zeke Elliott splitting carries, he was significantly more explosive at that point in his career. He was also younger. He also had fewer carries on his legs. That's got to be something that factors in. But I do think that introducing Nick Singleton into the conversation does make this running game a little bit more likely to be explosive without having to run Pollard as your only running back option. If you look at the most explosive by that explosion rate that I was talking about a second ago, 10-yard carries per carry, the 3 most explosive backup running backs last year were Tank Bigsby, who primarily played in Philly, a little bit in Jacksonville, mostly Philly, Keaton Mitchell in Baltimore, and Amari DeMarcado in Arizona, who I know we can very much laugh at because of the moment in the Titans game. But the 3 of them all had 16% or higher of their carries went for 10 or more yards as backup running backs. Very explosive. Well, and the reason I bring those guys up, sorry to just finish this point, is because all 3 of them, that was a very transferable trait from college. All 3 of them were incredibly explosive in college. If you go back to 2022, which was all 3 of their last years of college, Keaton Mitchell led the FBS in 10-yard carries that year. Not a surprise he's still good at it. DeMarcado split at TCU that year, but 22% of his carries that year were 10 yards or more. That is not that far off from the 23 that Singleton was at in 2024. And if you look at Bigsby, his last year of college, 2022, he was 4th in the country in 30-plus yard carries that season. Funny enough, 2nd place, Tyjae Spears. 3rd place, Nicholas Singleton. So theoretically, this is a transferable skill. Explosion is explosion. Explosiveness is explosiveness.
Yeah.
If Singleton can create at the Keaton Mitchell level, which means he has to have 8 explosive carries on 50 runs, you have totally reorganized the way this offense works.
I have Nick Singleton down for 50 carries as my ballparks, and I'm using round numbers for the sake of our conversation because it's easier to do this way. I think 220 is fair to look at Tony Pollard. I think they are very comfortable with Tony Pollard. I think there's questions about his durability, but not from like a based on history kind of conversation. He all 17 games started last year, and in 2023 is last year in Dallas. He started 16 games for the Titans, so he missed 1 game in his Titans career so far. He has started all but 1 game in 3 years. He hasn't played in fewer than 16 games since 2021 when he was a backup. Over 100 carries for 6 straight seasons, over 1,000 yards for 4 straight years. It's hard to see him getting like his per carry average for his career is 4.6. He was right at that last year at 4.5. If you do that with 220 carries, you don't get to 1,000 yards. And I think people will see that and think that's a slight step back. And I just don't know how much more Tyjae Spears will be used. I don't know how much Nick Singleton factors into this because, as to your point, Julius Chestnut, 11 or 12 carries last year. Tyjae Spears had 72. I think you have to, if you're going to go from 378 total as a team to somewhere in the 420, 430, 440 range as a team, and Pollard goes down, you got to find carries for people. So here's what I had 220 for Pollard. I added 28 carries to Tyjae Spears. I got to 100, which is about what you said. A backup is about 110. So I'm going to go 100 carries for Tyjae Spears. I'm going to go 50 for Nick Singleton. I'm going to go 30 for Cam Ward, just because you got to mix those guys in there. And then I put 20 as etc. That could be Chim DK. That could be a 4th running back. That could be a backup quarterback. Who knows what that is? That gets me to 420. Do you think they run the ball more than that?
I would still kind of guess they run the ball fewer times than that. But
really? So that still makes him one of the lowest ever in Daboll's tenure and one of the lowest in the NFL, just for the record.
It's hard for me not to get the playing from behind out of my head.
I hear you.
I would say 415, 400 is probably where I would estimate, which is an upgrade. I'm pretty much, so you said what they were last year, 370?
They were 378, and they were 30th in the NFL. I'm trying to look where 420 would be as we do this.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Hang on. Wait for it. 420, 415 would still be 27th in the NFL last year. Like that would still be one of the quote unquote least running teams in the league.
Okay. I'm fine with setting that as the over under.
Okay.
I'm fine with that being the range we're expecting.
I think the question is, can Pollard replicate what he's done for each of the last 4 seasons, which history tells us he can, but also 28 years old. He's getting into the age where running backs' bodies start to deteriorate. And while he hasn't had like Derrick Henry carry seasons, 300 carries, 350, he's been used a lot as a starting running back the last 4 years. And so I think it's fair to say that if you want him at his best down the stretch in November and December and January, you probably need Spears to go up from 72 carries. You probably need Nick Singleton to see what he's got, especially if you're trailing and he's a great pass catcher and a great third down back. You probably need to use Singleton a little bit more. So
I'm a little skeptical of his greatness in the passing game, but this is coming from a numbers perspective, not a scouting perspective. I'm not going to sit here and say I've grinded the tape on every pass route Nick Singleton has run in 4 years of college. I do not think he is going to be a better pass catching option than Tyjae Spears. If I want one of those backs on the field, I still think I'd prefer Spears to Singleton, but there's also something to be said of trying to develop a guy into a future contributor. You already probably know who Tyjae Spears is. There's still question marks about who Singleton can be. I still think at this stage in their career, based off what I know about the guys, I would prefer. Tyjae's averaged 45 catches a year through his 3 pro seasons. He is not a slouch in the passing game. I would still think that is valuable, but if Singleton, I don't see him as an upgrade yet, but if the Titans see him as an upgrade, I'm curious to see how it goes.
I'm not saying that he is. I'm saying that he's good in pass. He works hard in pass pro. He's a good catcher of the football and has explosive plays in the run game.
Sure.
That's how you get on the field in third down situations when you're trailing. And I agree with you, not ahead of Spears. But running backs are out all the time. Running backs need blows. They need to take a break. They get hurt.
For sure.
And you got to have 3 of them. Here's a good question here. But does Michael Carter offer anything unique to you? Certainly Saleh knows him.
Yeah, we got to see who's going to make the roster, right? Like,
yeah,
you can probably for sure pencil in Spears, Pollard, and Singleton. If there's going to be a 4th running back, is it Chestnut? Is it Mullings? I think those are probably the 2 favorites there.
Yeah.
And then you're probably getting down to running back 5, running back 6. I don't know if they carry 5 running backs, let alone 6. So maybe he can offer something. But it goes back to what we were talking about at the top of the show of you fill out spots 70 to 90 with veterans who still have cheap contracts.
My guess is that Carter, I don't know what Carter does. I don't know what his special teams profile is. I know that Chestnut and Mullings are both pretty good in that sense. And so if that's going to be the deciding factor, that might keep Carter off the team. This is also a good place for us to transition into the passing game because running backs are one of the only positions that do all of it.
Yeah.
And I guess the question is, like, if they only run the ball 415 times, 420, and they're 27th in the NFL, like, do any of these? I'm going to ask one fantasy question per position group because I don't really care. But I'm curious if we think any of these guys, like, I think Pollard is rosterable in fantasy drafts. I think last year he was sort of a sneaky underrated RB1. You could win with him or 2 Pollards, right? If your 2 running backs were 2 Pollards, you could win if you had good receivers. I don't know if he's. I don't think he's anything more than like a mid-level RB2 at this point or a low-level RB2. So I don't know. I do think you have to guess over 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns with 33 catches and 41 targets. I think Pollard's usage goes down slightly, if I had to guess.
Probably. As for the fantasy implications of the receiving room, I was a Wan'Dale Robinson.
We're not there yet.
That's what you said we were transitioning into.
No, I'm going to talk running backs first. Let's talk running backs first.
Okay.
So here's what I have for Singleton and so this is I would have guessed off the top of my head how many targets Pollard and Spears had out of the 570 passing attempts that this team had last year. I would not have guessed 91 targets to running backs last year. I think that's more than I expected. Spears got 50 targets, 45 receptions, an incredible catch rate, a 90+% catch rate for Spears. You got to acknowledge that. Pollard 41 targets, 33 catches. 206. I think Singleton's going to get about 25 targets ballpark. I think he's going to get maybe double that in terms of carries. That's still very clearly RB3 numbers. But I do think you have to assume with the influx of Wan'Dale Robinson, Calvin Ridley being healthy, adding Carnell Tate, having Helm and DK and Iomanner, you got to find targets for these guys. And I think the running back room at 91 targets, I think is more like it might still be around 90 targets, but it's going to be spread out. So I think Spears goes down. I think Pollard goes down. And I think Singleton adds a little bit. I would go more like 75 targets to the running backs, probably 25 each maybe. I don't mind Spears getting more than that if you want to use him in that way. Again, his catch rate for his career is over 90%. So the question is, how much are these guys being used in this newfound passing attack with all the new mouths you got to feed on offense with Cam Ward?
Yeah, last year's offense lacked a true underneath receiver option. And adding Wan'Dale Robinson in obviously does take away looks to the running backs because last year, pretty much if you needed a check down, you were going to a back. And that's why Tyjae Spears' catch rate is so high, is because it's a very high percentage of check down passes. It's very rare that he was running a route downfield and getting open. I don't necessarily know, without having seen the offense applied too much, just how much of the Wan'Dale Robinson of it all is going to take away from the running game. I know that Callahan and his scheme was very much built around using those swing passes as an extension of the running game. That is probably going to decrease. But I do think that having 3 running backs who can catch passes might offset it. So that is a long way of saying I bet the number probably stays around where it was.
So I have down here 4 targets a game to running backs. That's about 70 targets for the season. That's kind of what I was getting at with 75 roughly. I think what's interesting about this is Cam Ward had 540 pass attempts. Brian Daboll's offense has averaged 538 pass attempts. That's almost right across. That's dead even. I think 550 ballpark for Cam Ward is probably about right. That's about 32, 33 attempts per game. That's probably about right. Maybe a little bit higher because of trailing, to your point. Some things got to get squeezed out here when it comes to the passing attempts. Chig Okonkwo got targeted 79 times last year. He caught 56 passes. Is it fair to just move all of that directly to Carnell Tate and just say, I'm not saying those throws in the scheme. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying of the 550 we're going for here, which is about what they did last year, and I think it's about what Daboll has done historically. I think if you take those 80 targets, you add maybe a few, maybe it's 90 targets. I think that's about where I'm expecting Carnell Tate to do. Is that not the question I have really is the Ridley, Robinson, Tate of it all?
Yeah.
How do the 3 of them divvy up targets? You can look at Ridley's historical numbers. You can look at Wan'Dale's numbers with Daboll. And then you can look at Tate being drafted 4th overall and supposedly being more NFL ready than everyone else in the class. Is that fair to say those 80 targets, just move those to Carnell Tate right away?
Maybe, but I still think I would end up being pretty surprised if Wan'Dale Robinson doesn't lead the team in targets.
I do too. I have him leading the team.
So if you are transferring the guy who had the most targets last year to Tate, and you are trying to...
Well, Iomanor was the most targeted player on the team.
Oh, did he have more than Chig?
89. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I think that 80 targets is probably a fair assumption for Tate. In my head, it was like 65, 70, but I think 80 is fair if you're on the optimistic side. There's nothing egregious about targeting your top 5 receiver 80 times.
The problem is with 60... let's say 65 targets. The problem with that is even if you catch it at an 80% rate, which is not wide receiver rates. Wide receiver catch rates are if you're over 60, you're really good. Calvin Ridley 47% last year.
Yeah.
By the way, worst catch rate on the team. I just want to point this out. Do you know who it was last year?
Worst catch rate on the team.
Which means you're good enough to be targeted a few times.
I would, if it's not Ridley, I would guess Chim, but who is it?
Xavier Restrepo.
Okay.
43%. No, Ridley was the worst of the regularly used players.
Yeah.
And it was at 47%. And so the problem with 60 to 70 targets for Carnell Tate as the number 4 overall pick is people are not going to be happy with his numbers.
Yeah.
If you have a 60% catch rate, which is good for a wide receiver, on 60, you're talking about 35 catches. That's Corey Davis level of production when he was hurt as the number 5 overall pick. I think you got to feed him the ball a little bit more down the field. And I don't know what that means in terms of how it works with Wan'Dale's targets. I agree with you. I think Wan'Dale is by far the most targeted. I have Wan'Dale Robinson down for 120 targets. He had 140 each of the last 2 seasons. I can't see him getting close to 140 targets, but I think him and Ridley are going to be at like 6 a game, which is about 100 targets per season. Maybe Robinson's at 7 and Ridley's at 5. But I think it's Robinson and Ridley getting targeted over 100 times this season between the two, for each of them.
Yeah, I can't quit the idea of Calvin Ridley still being the most talented player in this room.
It's not close.
He's a very talented player.
It's not close. I agree with you.
If he's healthy and if he is engaged to the full extent of his ability, I do think he is a very talented player. Now, things we can't project are like trade deadline time with Tony Pollard, trade deadline time with Calvin Ridley, if something changes there and that skews the effects. But yeah, I again, if Carnell Tate is the 3rd most targeted wide receiver on this team, it would not be stunning to me. It also wouldn't be stunning to me if he's 2nd.
I agree.
Yeah.
So somebody, Bustin says 6 each or 6 total. 6 each. So if you do this, if you do 6 for Robinson, 6 for Ridley, 5 for Tate, right? You're at 100 plus targets for Robinson, 100 plus targets for Ridley, and 85 for Tate. I do think having the three of them largely be distributed evenly, basically, I think will be the biggest successful strategy for the Titans, because in a game in which a defense wants to roll up and play press man coverage and blitz a lot and challenge you down the field, well, that's when you expect Carnell Tate to be targeted more. If they're going to play a lot of zone coverage and drop 8 and play a lot of shell, maybe Robinson gets 9 or 10 targets in that game. On average, though, I think it is going to be, and like if you look at Ridley's numbers, he had 156 targets in 24 games for the Titans. I know there's a lot of numbers, but that's 6.5 per game for the Titans. His career is 7.5. So I think it's fair to look at 6.5 to 7 targets per game for Calvin Ridley, because he is still clearly the number one receiver in the room, to your point. I think you're wasting Calvin Ridley if you're targeting him 3 times a game.
Yeah, and I don't think Calvin Ridley would, like, I don't want to over speculate here, but I don't necessarily know that 3 targets per game is going to be a good idea. Like, if you're targeting 3 times a game, you're targeting 0 times a game. Like,
yeah.
We know, we've seen what happens in games where they struggle to get Ridley the ball, and like, he does need to be worked in early.
Checks out.
But I don't want to say like he's clearly the number one, because Carnell Tate very easily can be the number one. I do think Carnell Tate has the ability to.
I'm saying right now.
Yeah. I just think that right now, Calvin Ridley, if he's healthy, is a talent that we shouldn't rule out as that talent.
In a perfect scenario, and I would say this is probably closer to the midway mark of the season, that the talent of Carnell Tate is putting him in the conversation as the number one, but the scheme that they face each week will dictate whoever gets the most targets in that particular game.
Sure.
However, having all 3 areas of the defense having to focus on somebody who operates functionally as a number one option in a scheme is what we're talking about here. And so I really do. It's really interesting to look at. Like, I don't, it means that maybe none of them are worth fantasy drafting, to be honest. Other than like depth pieces or in keeper leagues or flex guys, or if you have if you're in a 14-team league with like 4 receivers, then absolutely they're all options. But
I would say if you're in a 14-team league with 3 receivers, Wan'Dale's still a 2.
100%. Yeah, they're all drafted.
He's gonna catch a lot of passes, and if you're in a PPR, go get him.
But, yeah, PPR for sure. So I just think like Ridley's numbers historically, I think by the end of the year, you want Carnell Tate to clearly be the best receiver on the team from like an eyeball test standpoint. When you look at him, you're like, that guy's going to be the best. Like, he's the best player. I think it's unfair to ask him to be more polished than Calvin Ridley right now. I think that's unfair. I think Calvin Ridley's explosiveness, his burst off the line of scrimmage, the way he runs routes. I just think, and here's the other thing in all of this that I don't think we've mentioned yet. He does have a very good relationship with the quarterback.
Yeah.
And I don't think if you ask me, hey, did Cam Ward have anything to do with Calvin Ridley sticking around, taking a better deal for the Titans? I would say absolutely. I would say Cam went to the team and probably said, yeah, I'd love to keep Calvin around. Probably went to Calvin and said, I'd love to keep you around.
Daniel's question about Alec, just to talk very briefly about Chim and Alec together. It is my understanding that before the start of free agency, before the draft, all of the machinations that were going on this offseason, the Titans viewed DK a little bit more highly than they viewed Alec. I think we've talked about that before. Alec, in order to win a starting role, you would either need to see an injury or you would need to see a situation where the franchise is not super high on Gunner Helm. So they're going to end up using 4 receiver sets more often than you would expect. It's going to be tough. You've got $20 million a year going to Calvin Ridley. You've got $18 million a year going to Wan'Dale Robinson, and you used a top 5 pick on Carnell Tate. And that's not even mentioning DK, who, again, I believe the Titans, at least at the beginning of the offseason, were higher on. The coaching staff obviously has had more time to get to know these guys. I still think that Alec profiles as a more complete wideout than Chim does. That doesn't necessarily mean when you're wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, completeness matters. You need to have a role and you need to figure out what your specialty is. And I did not see a true specialty from Alec last year. Now, injuries happen. It's good to have the depth piece. If he was your most targeted wide receiver last year, and now he is your 4th or 5th most targeted wide receiver, you have gotten better.
Yeah,
You've gotten better, and that's awesome. But I don't necessarily see him competing for a starting role immediately.
Ironically, I think Carnell Tate could be a poor man's DeAndre Hopkins, and I think Alec Iomanner could be a poor man's Carnell Tate. Is kind of how I view their skill sets. I do think Iomanner and DK complement each other quite well with their skill sets. Iomanner had 89 targets last year. DK had 74. I think you can expect that to be cut in half for Alec Iomanner. Like, I would have 40 targets down here as a red zone fill-in when somebody gets hurt, to your point. I think DK's role doesn't change all that much. I really think he's like he happened to be higher on the depth chart on a bad team, and now he's going to be lower on the depth chart on a slightly better position group, but I think his numbers are about the same. He had 74 targets last year. If you give 300 targets to the top 3, you're still looking at 250 targets that need to be passed around. And I think 60 to 70 targets for DK, especially with the speed, especially on those dig routes. I think he's a very natural catcher of the football. I might disagree slightly with your could he profile as a more complete player, that kind of way to frame it. I think right now Iomanner is a more complete player. I think DK has things that Iomanner will never have in terms of speed. And so if he can polish his route running, I mean, Iomanner had some moments where he was lost in space as well. So I actually think DK, 48 catches, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. I actually don't think that's crazy to sort of say, hey, I could do 40 catches for 400 yards and a couple touchdowns again next year while being the premier return man that he is on special teams. I think that's a hell of a number 4 receiver. If you need to bring him in 4 receiver sets, have him fill in if somebody gets hurt. He could play the Robinson role if you need him to, if you have to. I just think DK can do kind of everything.
Yeah.
And I don't think his role changes all that much in terms of how his usage rate doesn't change all that much.
I tend to agree. When I talk about completeness, I will add this like framing device. If you are the most complete receiver on the team and you have number 1 talent, you're the best player in football. If you're the most complete receiver on the team and you've got number 4 talent, you probably don't see the field. Like, being complete doesn't matter if you are competing to be a role player. Like, being complete matters if you're Justin Jefferson. Being complete matters if you can do it all and have number 1 skills. Iomanner doesn't have a single overwhelming trait. It's funny, you ever go on that mock draftable site with the pentagons and you look at the shape of players 40 times and all that stuff?
And his is all in the middle.
Alec Iomanner was like the 8th most comparable player to Carnell Tate. When you looked at
Tate, I told you.
You know who the most comparable player to Carnell Tate was? And I found this fascinating. It's Romeo Doubs.
That actually tracks.
Yeah. We spent this entire offseason, should the Titans give $20 million to Romeo Doubs? Well, they drafted him. I think Tate profiles as better version of Romeo Doubs, but I do think it is fun.
I think like, as someone who's watched a lot of Romeo Doubs, I really like that type of player. And he is. Alec Iomanner, a poor man's Romeo Doubs. Tate has the one thing that Doubs was great with his feet, which is sort of like a Devontae Adams thing. When you are great with your feet, you can get off press man coverage. You don't have to be big and strong and fast. You can just manipulate people in their hips. I think what Tate does is he's more explosive than Romeo Doubs, especially getting off the line of scrimmage. So I think that does benefit. Like, if he's a slightly more explosive down the field version of Romeo Doubs, I think that's a good player.
The reason Romeo Doubs drew the Tate comparison, for those who are curious, they both have massive hands. They both have wingspans that are bigger than you would expect for somebody with a 6'1", 6'2" frame, and they both do not have top end speed.
That's right. Although 4.53 or whatever is still
it's roughly league average. Like, that's not slow. It's pretty
slow.
fast.
That's right. It's not slow. So here we go. How about 300 for the top 3 receivers? Let's go 70 for DK. Let's go 40 for Iomanner, which is a 50 target reduction for Alec Iomanner. 80 from Chig are now going to go right over to Carnell Tate, basically. I'm going to reduce the running back room from 91 targets to about 70-ish. Gunner Helm, I think, who had 55 targets last year for 44 receptions, a really good catch rate, I think is clearly their starting tight end. Now, here's the other sneaky one here. Daniel Bellinger only had 26 targets, but he had a 15 yards per catch average last year, which is interesting. They only used him They didn't use him a lot, but when they did, he was
What was the
picking
run
up
after
chunks.
What was the run after catch versus?
I don't have that.
Okay, yeah,
I could see your brain going like, well, was it a small screen that he picked up 15 yards? Or,
I'll pull that up.
So I think if you're going from, I mean, they had over 140 targets between Helm and Chig last year. That's a lot of targets. I think that number comes down in total, obviously, but I think you're probably going to get about the same with Bellinger. You're probably going to get 20, 25 targets. I think Helm probably gets about 50. So I do think you're sitting there. That can get you to 550 attempts pretty quickly. So I think I want to know what else is in the mix here. Like, I don't think there's another running back. I don't know what other tight end. I think Kanek is the other one that we should talk about here. Jaren Kanek, I think, is a guy who, if you're looking for a third tight end to pick up the David Martin Robinson 15 targets or whatever, or 10 targets, that kind of thing, I think Kanek could be in that range to kind of fill in the gaps. There's always extra target. James Prochet, I think, had 13 targets last year, and Xavier Restrepo had 8. And I think there's lots of guys in that range. I think that's Bryce Oliver and Jaren Kanek, I think, on this team.
Fun cleanup, because this is actually fascinating to see now. So the 4 years of Daniel Bellinger's career, here are his average depth of targets by year. 2022, 4.0. 2023, 4.6. 2024, 5.1. 2025, 9.4.
There we go.
Last year,
he started going
downfield a little bit. The split last year, yards before reception was 8.1. Yards after reception was 6.9. So he was gaining more yards before the catch than after the catch.
But it's still, he's a little bit of both. He's a little bit of both.
That is,
he's going to the sticks, turning around, and then picking up a few extra yards. Like, that's kind of what that is. But not used a lot. I just think, again, 26 targets, I think, is about right for him. I think he gets to that range again. So broadly, what are we saying here? Tony Pollard, Alec Iomanner, probably going to be used less in this offense in general. I think Iomanner is the big loser in all of this. I think Ridley and Robinson get used as normal. I think Spears gets used as normal. I think Gunner Helm and DK are probably used about the same. And so then it's Carnell Tate. Carnell Tate, your number 4 pick. So there you go.
Yeah. Really, really enjoying the weird comments about Philip Supernaw right now. You're taking me back, guys. Thank you for this. When I was in high school, every year, my friends and I would put together a bracket on the first day of training camp of the 64 best names in the NFL, and we would just play it ourselves. And I remember Supernaw making it to the Final Four one year. So bringing me back.
Absolutely.
Good name.
Absolutely. Ideally, Tate is 80 to 90% of DeAndre Hopkins. I think asking for 90% of DeAndre Hopkins is probably setting the bar a little high. I think 80% is about what you expect when you draft him at number 4 overall.
Yeah.
Tate's 10.5-inch hands, elite. There's no question there. Deep threat, Daniel Bellinger. There you go. All right, what did we learn here? What did we learn through this exercise?
You tell
Cam
me.
Ward should have a lot more versatility and options to throw to and hand off to this year.
Yeah, I think the Titans' offense is going to be harder to game plan for. I think that the Titans have more options to move the ball around. I think that Cam Ward should have an easier time attacking all 3 levels of the defense. And will he be upright? Who knows? We'll talk about that at another date.
Are you blocking anyone in the middle?
We will talk about that at another date. But I do think that it's very clear that the priorities this offseason were make it easier for Cam to get the ball out to a variety of people, make it so one great defender can't take away your entire game plan, make it so you have speed, but you also have check down options, but you also have physicality. Yep. I think this is a more well-rounded offense, certainly from the skill players' positions, than it has been since probably A.J. Brown was here.
Yeah, I agree.
That is a good thing. We will see how it looks in practice. We'll see how quickly the ball can get out. We'll see how much Cam has to rely on theatrics and scrambling. We'll see if the offense is built around those traits or is built around only letting him use those traits when he needs to break glass in case of emergency. There's a lot we need to see, But on paper, which is what we've been talking about today, there does seem to be reason to believe that things will be better.
I think the most interesting thing that I learned through this process is that the Giants' offense was difficult to predict from a tendency standpoint. Meaning 1 year they were one of the highest rushing teams in the league, and the next year they're one of the most pass-heavy teams in the league. And I think seeing Daboll's offense swing back and forth between those focuses, I thought is interesting going into a new set of players with a new situation where you don't know what his tendency is going to be. Are they going to lean heavily on a power rushing attack? It seems like they're going to do that more than they did last year, but is that just because they were trailing? Does he want Cam Ward to air it out because they have all these weapons in all these different places? Again, not elite weapons, but deeper and wider that you can deploy these guys. You got three. I like Singleton, so I like him as a third back. I think they've got a decent set of three. I don't know what their future is at that position. There's no rock star there. So I think it's going to be versatile. I think it's going to be difficult to predict, to your point about hard to game plan for. And so, yes, TLDR, we're back, fellas.
Yeah.
Says
TLDR, invite me to places in Nashville and I'll show up. Invite Braden to places in Nashville and he has child.
I has a child. I has child. Fun tidbit, but my buddy apparently spotted AJ Brown at Lowe's in Antioch looking very confused at the fridge aisle yesterday.
Cool.
That's a perfect way to end the Nick Suss episode.
AJ, I'm selling my garage fridge at the moment. We know you're listening, AJ. If you need a garage fridge, I am selling it. AJ Brown, if you would like to buy my garage fridge.
You have a garage and a garage fridge? I'm very jealous.
In a couple of weeks, I will have neither. So I am selling the fridge.
You guys are moving?
We're moving downtown. Okay. We want to live in actual Nashville.
Ooh, fancy. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for hanging out, as always. Enjoy the weekend. I assume we'll have some football players doing football things on a football field soon, right?
Shortly.
Are we ever going to find out?
I have a date of the first one I'll be out there for, but I think that's for private use. So I'll tell you after the show.
It's for private use, yeah. But it should be soon that the other people will be doing football things and we'll be able to watch it. So thank you guys all for hanging out. Go to Sinkers Beverages, sign up for Good Journalism, Tennessean.com. And you know what? If you need olive juice, Sinkers has got you covered. Otherwise, have a cold beer this weekend and just relax. That's my advice to people. Just take deep breaths. Enjoy someone else's company. Put your phone down. Touch some grass. I'm an old man. Just do what I say. That's Nick. I'm Braden. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.